when we start to record. Okay. So, Johnny, it's good to hear that you're going to be doing a retreat. And by the way, it's good to see you again. Glad to see you. And
Yes.
you're planning on doing a retreat with Goenka. And as I've mentioned before, I've been around the Goenka retreats. I know what they were like when he was doing them. I also know what they were like when he stopped doing them and they started doing them on video recorders,
Mm.
on CDs, and mostly CDs in those days. They've got DVDs now, but they're very careful not to let that stuff out in public. They
Mm.
don't want that, all of his retreats that have been filmed uh, put out into public because they would rather be able to control the environment for them. Because not only would the tapes themselves of those uh, retreat talks be not very effective, it would also diminish the value of the retreats. So
Mm.
letting those tapes out would be a lose-lose situation for everyone. And so
Mm.
they keep it tight. A better thing to say is that just Goenka knows when to keep his mouth shut.
Mm. I see.
All right. So let's talk about the retreats in general. The first thing is that you mentioned is that the retreats they say are free. Basically, what they mean is that they're the all of the retreats are basically set up for beginners. Every retreat is a beginner's retreat. That old students are left with just sitting with new students in retreats. They
Mm.
do have an extra retreat called the Satipatthana, but basically it's, let us say, second graders' version of the first graders' retreat.
Mm.
It's still all the same thing. And then they actually have longer retreats, like a 30-day retreat will just be a 10-day retreat, and you just triple everything.
Mm. I
So
see.
that's basically the retreat system that has been set up from Goenka because of the training that he got in Burma, which, by the way, was through a layman named Uba Khin, and Uba Khin was actually a government official back in Burma in those days. In fact, he was really high class. Basically, you could say that he was the chairman of the treasury
Mm.
in Burma. So let's not do too much Burmese history and all of that about because I know a lot about Goenka. But let's talk about the retreats themselves and what you can expect for yourself in that retreat. That one of the things that Goenka does not talk about very much, but you can see that it's fitting in, is when he is practicing in those first 3 days of Anapana, they call it,
Yep.
that he doesn't talk about actually seizing and controlling the breathing and making that a long, easy breath. That's the part that is missing in his teachings. And so be sure to make that as a part of it. That if uh, you, I would recommend highly, just like he does, to follow their directions. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that that's so important within the Goenka system was when he got started in India, there was a lot of Indians that would come and do his retreats. But what they would do instead of his retreats is they would do the puja that they do in their Hindu temples.
Mm.
And
Do their own thing.
in order to cut out the puja, he didn't want anybody with their own bells and their own beads and their own incense and all of that kind of stuff. And so he
Mm.
kind of made it strict by saying you've got to put away all of that stuff, as well as verbally speaking mantras under your breath and all of that kind of stuff. Let's keep it quiet here. And so they asked people to follow those directions. But those directions that he's asking to follow were because of the students in India that he had in the 1980s, early 1980s, late 1970s, and that kind of thing, as opposed to the Westerners now. So they're giving the Westerners in Finland directions that are 50 years old and directed at a different audience. So be careful
Mm.
about that kind of thing that's going on, and recognize that you can make some small changes by doing some addition to what they're talking about, as opposed to just something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so I am giving you permission in a way to kind of break their strict rule about you do what you're told and nothing else.
Mm.
In, into, yeah, go ahead and do what you're told, but let's put a cherry on top of that cake also.
Mm.
All
Yes.
right. And actually work with the breath in a way of letting it be relaxed and easy and all of that. And even though it appears that there is some pressure on each individual to conform, because the retreats have that kind of a built-in pressure, um, everybody has trouble relaxing when the whole point is to help you relax. But
Mm. Yes.
very hard to get someone who is angry to get him to relax by sitting on him,
Mm-hmm.
pinning
Right.
his arms down with your knees and tell him to
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to relax. You can't get people to relax by holding them down. You just can't do it. All right. So even though you're feeling like that they're holding you down, that's only a feeling that you have that too needs to relax.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That they're not holding you down. They're giving you an opportunity to relax.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. Okay. So in the Goenka retreats especially, but many retreats also, there'll be a part of the orientation is that they'll take away everything that you like. If you've got a cell phone, they'll take it. If you've got a laptop, they'll take it. If you've got a book, you'll take it. It doesn't matter who the author is. Whatever that's going on that you use to occupy your mind, you want for the 10 days in this retreat to give that stuff up so that you can occupy the mind with the mind rather than all of the things that you've been using to occupy the mind to distract the mind from the mind in normal life. Like
Mm-hmm.
television, radio, and movies, and going to shows, and
Phones.
all that kind of entertainment is to be put aside for these 10 days. And that gives you an enormous opportunity. And when you begin to have thoughts about, oh, poor me, I don't have what I want, in the sense of the stuff that I brought, always keep that sati going to remember that you're here for something different than watching your cell phone, that you're
Yeah.
here now to watch the mind instead, and you're going to take that opportunity to do this. Okay. And so this is a way of practice. And that what I would also, just on the side, is to recommend uh, to not work hard at it or make it an important point, but rather on the first day, people normally establish where in the hall they are going to be sitting.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend is on for uh, either men or women, they put men on one side and women on the other. Try to get an aisle seat, and
What?
also try to get one that's as close to the front as possible.
Okay. What is a
Okay,
Nile seat?
an aisle, like you have an aisle, there's going to be a
Oh,
separation between the men and the women, and people will walk
yes.
down that aisleway, just like you have an
Yes.
aisle in a church.
Yes. Yes. Okay,
Okay,
I
you
see.
have aisles in movie theaters,
Mm.
except that this
Also,
aisle.
like,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that they they made reference several times that because of COVID is still a thing, so I think there's going to be even more spacing than usual in the sitting stuff, the sitting hall, and that sort of thing. I'm
Mhm.
guessing, so I don't know.
Right, which means that if you're late and slow, that you'll get a really back seat, and that may mean that it's difficult to hear what's going on, and you may miss a lot of the stuff. But
Mm.
that's why I would
Yes.
recommend to get into the middle to the point of close to the aisle and also up close to the front, so that you can get a better clue about what's happening.
Mm.
That the
Okay.
further back people sit, the less attention they pay, and the teachers in fifth grade know that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so that's the first thing is where you're going to be in the room, and the second thing is to not compare yourself with what the other people or the students are doing. That in fact, some of the students in there, whether you know them or not, some of them will be old students and some of them will be new students. By
Yes.
observing, you can begin to figure out who's an old student and who's a new student, especially
Yeah.
by the third day. So on
Yes.
the third day, those that are enjoying themselves are probably old students, and those that are miserable, and they wear their misery with pride.
Mm.
Okay, so become aware of that. That the invitation is to see that misery and come out of it.
Mm.
And yet, people go to these Goenka retreats really not ready for them. You
Mm.
can imagine that somebody has never done a retreat, never done any meditation, probably hasn't done any much of Buddhism, but because of circumstances have found themselves into a Goenka retreat, they're completely not ready for.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, this is almost guaranteed for high quality misery.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right, make sure that you're going into there with the attitude that you're not going to get miserable, that you're going to become a winner,
Mm.
that you can handle this Goenka retreat, that you can say that the Goenka retreats are the absolute boot camp of Buddhism. But it's not SEAL training. I know where the SEAL training is too, but first you got to go through boot camp. And
Mm.
Goenka operates a boot camp.
Where's the SEAL training? Thailand?
Uh, Both Thailand and in Tibet. They've
Mm.
got some pretty deep training systems there too. But yes, that's correct. Not much real SEAL training yet in the West because we don't have any students ready for SEAL training.
Mm. I
They'd
see.
rather be teachers than get the real training.
Mm. Right.
Funny how that works, by the way, and I think that that's quite brilliant. I figured that out in university. It was a big deal there in the sense that those who can do and those who can't teach. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
hmm Well, the reason that there are no boot camps in the West is because nobody can do those boot camps. And those who can't teach Dhamma.
Mm.
So, not boot camp, sorry, but SEAL training.
Yes.
Uh, so, anyway, the boot camp can be ferocious enough if you let it be.
Mm.
One of the things that make it ferocious is that they do not do any walking meditation. It's not a formalized thing they do or even talk about or even know about. That's something that I would say is a big hole in Goenka's teaching style and method and whatnot,
Mm.
is that they don't. So what that means is that whatever walking that you have to do on their campus, from the meditation hall to your dorm or to the kitchen or to whatever like that, that's the time for you to do walking meditation in the sense of being mindful of every step that you take. Be
Yes.
there with the body, be there with the breathing, and be there with the relax of how nice it is to be able just to stand and walk because you're going to be doing a lot of sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing is the walking meditation, places to sit, and also to be sure that you're adding that extra ingredient that Goenka he kind of talks about it and kinds of mentions it. It's part of the pattern. You can actually pick up that Goenka knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't put it as part of his formal meditation method of practice. It's almost like that he didn't read all of the Anapanasati Sutta.
Mm.
You only read part of it, okay? And that basically then the culmination of the Goenka retreat is going to be step 3 of Anapanasati, which is experiencing the body. And that's where they do the body scanning. The body scanning that's done in the Goenka retreat is a very, very powerful, powerful tool. I would highly recommend any student who's ready for it to do a Goenka retreat simply so that they can practice this waking up the body. But you also, in that time, there's going to be what they refer to as 3 days of anapana and then 7 days of scanning.
Yeah.
All right. The 3 days of anapanasati you're going to do with mindfully breathing correctly by focusing on the breathing. When you start with the body scanning, you're not going to actually stop the breathing. Nobody body scans while they're not breathing. Everybody's
Yes.
continuing to breathe. What that means then is that the tools that you're gaining and working with in the first 3 days, you add those to the last 7 days. A lot of students think that there's first grade 3 days and then second grade 7 days of body scanning, and you don't do what you did in the first grade. You do what you're doing in the second grade. No, the second grade is to build on, and so also make sure that when you're doing the body scanning that you're breathing well, you're breathing
Mm.
long, slow, and relaxed. And you begin to experience the body actually experiencing and relaxing. Most people, if they're not watching what's going on, they wind up having so many negative thoughts about the retreat that they sit there for 7 days watching their body tense up
Right.
instead of watching their body relax.
Mm.
Okay, so this is another feature, is to allow those long, deep breaths to help you continue to get the body to relax. Because step 4 of Anapanasati is to relax the body. But
Mm.
let's not stay at this step 3 and only scanning, 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 and more scanning and a bit more scanning, and now you have to sit and scan for an hour without moving. Okay,
Mm.
they just make it tougher and tougher on you. Your job is to make it easier and easier on yourself while they're making it tougher and tougher.
Mm.
That's my advice. Now, watch out for day 6 because day 6 is notorious for being the low spot.
Mm. Why is that?
Well, because by day 7, people can begin to get the idea of light at the end of the tunnel. I can get by this now. But on day 6,
Mm.
that's when we're kind of at the bottom of the barrel. Is, oh no, how bad
I
can this
see.
get?
I see. I see. Yeah.
And so all the Goenka students, volunteers, they know about day 6 generally. That day 6
Mm.
seems to be, everybody in the whole place is just miserable on day 6.
Yes.
But you don't have to be. You don't have to follow the maddening crowd.
Mm.
You can stay up. You can stay bright. Okay.
Yes.
That's an important thing. Now we can go on to a few more things that you can do while you're in there that Goenka will kind of mention in his talks and whatnot, like these are good ideas or these are nice stories. But basically what we need to do is to see that those are actually aspects of Anapanasati and need to be applied in this retreat.
Mm.
Okay. For instance, he does talk about the Trilokana and arising and falling. You need to also pay attention not to just the arising and the falling of the breath and the chest, but also the arising and falling of mind moments, like what's in the mind and how that what's ever in the mind just is there temporarily. It arises and then it passes away and something else arises and passes away and something else
Yes.
arises and passes away. Start paying attention to that anicca. Start paying attention to the fact that things are arising and passing away. um, Actually, now you're beginning to see that they're arising and passing away at a very rapid pace, a ferocious
Mm-hmm.
level. And so this is actually, now we're talking about step 13, 14, 15, and 16 of Anapanasati, which is actually the practice of what are we going to do with the mind. And now we've got the mind fit for work. The problem with the Goenka retreats, the way that they've got it set up, is very rarely do people actually get their mind into a state to where it's fit for work. But by adding the joy and also the sati of keeping the mind very, very clear, we can um, enter into that state where the mind is really perceptive, where we can see. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa calls it a mind fit for work. And
Mm.
what the Buddha refers to it as applied and sustained thought, in the sense that we can apply our mind to something and then keep it there to sustain it. So at one time or another, you're going to be able to apply your mind to see how things arise in the mind and then sustain watching it fall, watching things arise, watching them fall, and keep doing that. Keep watching, keeping the mind. In other words, don't let something arise and then wander off with it.
Yes.
But you watch it rise and then die, and then come back again and then die, and then arise again and then die. Everything, in fact, we begin to pay more attention to the passing away rather than the arrival.
Yes.
Okay.
The ending of it rather than the arising of it.
That this is a major part of the practice, is to see things one by one as they occur, as they arise, and as they pass away.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of questions that you're going to be asking yourself in a very, very wholesome way, which these questions that I'm talking about are actually part of the investigation, one's right view. And so you're going to be asking yourself the kind of questions about, is my mind capable of staying on a sustained position? Another kind of question that you're going to ask yourself, in other words, you're actually investigating the ability to apply and sustain the mind.
Mm.
Okay, so pay attention to that, watch for it, understand that that's one of the things that the Buddha would recommend that you look at. Another one would be, how is your sukha? How good do you feel? How is your
Mm-hmm.
piti? How is your effort? How is your sati? In other words, you begin to investigate these Eightfold Noble Path points as well as the states of mind that you're in while you're either on your way into jhana or in jhana.
Mm-hmm.
Is to
Yes.
pay attention to the jhana factors. Okay. Is my mind distracted or am I on point?
Mm-hmm.
First question. Second question is that am I using language that my thoughts are to gladden the mind, to brighten the mind, to keep everything really steady? Because a lot of people are going to be miserable around you, and that misery is going to be picked up, and here you are just
Mm.
floating in the air.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you got to be aware of that. You got to be aware of your enthusiasm. Pay close attention to the jhana factors. Pay close attention to the Eightfold Noble Path, most specifically, right view, right sati, right effort, right attitude. What's your attitude? Ask yourself often about that question, because everybody in that room, everybody there is going to ask the kind of question, when is this going to be over and how can I get out early?
Yes.
Okay. And the answer is that you're going to have the fortitude to not just stay in that 10-day retreat, but to enjoy the heck out of it,
Mm-hmm.
to become
Yes.
a winner in that retreat, not a loser trying to escape. Okay, this is
Yeah.
Sama Sankappa, the right attitude. Have a right attitude about these guys are setting this retreat up to help you for your benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're actually holding your feet to the fire just so that you can observe what it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that you can let Goenka's retreat hold your feet to your own mental fires, and you can quench them
Mm-hmm. Right.
because they're really not doing anything. That's the whole point of it. Is that they've got it set up so that there's nothing for you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what's your choice about actually physically being there with nothing to do? Are you just going to make yourself miserable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's what most people do.
Yeah.
And you can go into that Goenka retreat and get a big kick out of it. Wow, this is great. Got no place to go and nothing to do. I can just sit here on my butt and just have a ball.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the way, the attitude of going into that retreat will be a major, major thing for you.
Hmm.
And keeping that attitude will be what the whole retreat is about.
Hmm.
And so I wish you best of luck. I wish you great mindfulness.
Thank you, thank you. My biggest
You have any
concern that
particular? Yeah, go ahead.
uh, I was just saying that like the maybe it's a bit silly, but like the only concern that I have, or like the main concern at least, is like the back pain or the knee pain while sitting on that's the only thing that I that I'm concerned with. That's because
Okay.
it's gonna be for a long time, right? And yeah.
I would recommend that you do not follow that as strictly as they would expect. For
Mm,
one thing, when the Goenka system got started, it got started first off in Burma, and second off, it got started in India, where both Indians and Burmese people live a lot of their time on the floor.
mm,
Thai people, they sit and eat lunch on the floor.
mm, right.
She's 20 years old now, but when I first met her, she was 13, a stepdaughter, and she eats lunch in the lotus posture. She eats her
Mm.
meal sitting in the lotus posture because lotus is a very comfortable position for her. Now my
Right.
own
Yeah,
daughter
yeah.
can get into the lotus posture. She's 7 years old because she
Mm,
spends a lot of time on the floor.
hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
She can also get into those traditional Thai postures that I can't even get into now.
Mm, yeah.
That's when you're sitting on your side, but your left leg is tucked under your right leg, and you're kind of leaning because both the legs are on your right side, and you have
Mm.
to hold yourself up straight. I think you've seen those postures.
I have. I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's back pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not if you've been doing it your whole life.
Yeah. Of course. Right.
That's the difference, is to recognize that this system was set up for people who are already used to sitting on the floor,
Hmm.
and you're not. Give yourself a break. At the Bhikkhu Buddhadasa retreats at the International Dhamma Hermitage here in Thailand, they know about that big time, and they
Mm.
know to teach the students that that's not the way. Just sitting and just more sitting and more sitting. Give yourself a break. There's also the old how to say it, politeness or social conventions that you're not supposed to point your feet towards a king or a high class person.
Mm.
In Thailand, you can get arrested for stepping on money because it's got the picture of the king on it. So you're like
Oh.
stepping on the face of the king, right? This
I
is
see.
just the old mentality, but that mentality then can be ossified into a really stupid rule. And the
Mm.
stupid rule is that even though the only thing that you'll find at the front of your meditation hall will be an empty altar with maybe a photograph or maybe a tape recorder or something like that, still you're supposed to treat that place as if God Almighty, or at least Goenka himself, were sitting up there, and you're not supposed to point your feet at him, right? That's a
Mm.
silly rule. A lot of people think that the only option they have is to either uh, stay seated or to move around in an unobstructed way. What I would recommend, that if your legs are hurting, actually go ahead and stand up. That
Mm.
really does relieve it. The reason for that is because if you move from one cross-legged posture to another cross-legged posture, that the circulation stops. That your body has not gotten used to the fact, the way that the Thai people are. They can pump that blood in other ways if that artery is closed off. But you don't
Mm.
have that choice. Your body has never had that experience. So standing up for just 5 seconds or 10 seconds will be a great relief.
Mm.
It
I
may
see.
be, in fact, that when somebody sees you standing up, that one of the attendants will come to tell you to sit back down, and that will be your cue before he even gets there to go ahead and sit back down so he doesn't have
Yeah.
exposure. You can see him on his way
Yeah.
and okay, and sit back down. But I would still say to take care of yourself. Do not sit in pain, in leg pain. Do
Hmm.
not let the legs go to sleep and stay asleep. Go do whatever movements that you need to do. About
Okay.
the back pain, the best way to handle this, and in fact, they may teach it to you, but most students forget about it. And that is that the back pain is best managed by making sure that you're sitting up straight and tall.
Hmm.
All right. Here's what we mean by that. That if you're sitting up straight, then gravity is pulling you straight down. Find your own center of gravity. You know how to do that. All right.
Yes.
You have to do that to ride a bicycle. If you can't find your center of gravity, you just fell over.
Hmm.
Okay. So once you're able to find your center of gravity, recognize that that will change. For instance, if you start to sloop or to slouch, that
Yes.
the posture now, the gravity is pulling you down, causing the back muscles extra
Hmm.
strength or extra stuff. If you begin to have some back pain, that means that you need to adjust your back just as soon as you recognize the back pain is there. Don't sit with back pain, letting the back pain get more and more and more while you're complaining. What do I do about it? Oh, my back hurts. I wish this time was over. That's what we do in ordinary life. The answer
Hmm.
is as soon as you recognize the tiniest little back pain, you straighten back up. Get yourself,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, I can do this. Okay. That's
Okay.
the way to do it. Straighten back up. Get your back straight so that
Hmm.
the least amount of force is on your back. And then after you do that, then you let it relax straight down. One of the
Hmm.
symbols that they use is imagine that there is a rope or a line that's pulling you from the top of your head straight up. And
Yeah.
as soon as you get to that, cut that rope and then let yourself gently just drift straight down into a state of
Hmm.
relaxation. But the relaxation has to be straight. It
Hmm.
cannot be slumped. If it's slumped, the back pain will start again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Yep.
So don't worry about back pain. Don't worry about leg pain. You can handle that. You've got the tools and the skills to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so too. But yeah. Um, okay, so if there's still time for like a couple other questions, I
Sure,
think.
go ahead.
So recently, maybe like I don't know, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Uh, I've been getting a lot of when I'm meditating, a lot of like activation on my left side. Uh, so like on my hands, when I'm like this, my thumb, the tip of my thumb gets really, really, really energetic. It's like someone is like pressing it with like a an hydraulic press. It's not painful or anything, but it's like a very intense massage, and uh, it's always when I'm like this. It's always like here on the left side, and uh, it gets a bit it gets to a point where it starts actually being a little bit uncomfortable because it's
Okay.
too much. um,
All right. Let's put it this way. Until the end of the retreat, um, at the end of the retreat, they will have what they call strong
determination sitting.
determination settings, right?
Yeah.
But most of the retreat will not be that way. So let's talk about the retreat not like that so that we can then get ready for the retreat when we're doing the strong determination sittings. Okay.
Sure.
In the strong determination sittings, they have it that you do not open your eyes or do not uncross your legs or do not open your hands. All right. That assumes that everybody has a hand posture and then, in fact, you just mentioned it, where the thumbs are actually touching each other or whatnot.
Hmm.
But that's only one of many hand movements But
Yes.
in fact, these are called MUdras. Have you ever heard of the
Yes.
word mudra? Do you know what the
Yes, I
word
have.
mu means?
No.
The word mu is for the word hand.
Mm.
Okay. And so hand movements or hand postures, and there's a lot of them. Okay. One
Yes.
of them is to have the palms of the hands sitting on each of the knees. Your left
Mm.
hand is
Yes.
on your left knee, the right, and the idea of this posture is what they call touch the earth. And what
Mm.
that means is that over your right knee, with the knee here, that the finger can droop down to where with you can just barely touch the floor or touch the cushion or
Mm.
touch the cloth or touch the floor or touch the ground. This is why they call it touch the earth. Is that when the mind gets into very, very lofty states and we don't know what our orientation is, that we can
Mm.
touch the earth to get grounded again.
Okay.
That's what that mudra is. Okay. There are other mudras to where you'll have one hand on top of the other laying flat on the floor. Another one is to put them like this and then put the thumbs together. Another
Mm.
one is to have the fingers like this. There are many
Mm.
different mudras, but each one of the mudras, if you're using the mudra properly, especially with the body scanning, is that you're really paying attention to what the hands are doing,
Mm.
which is exactly what you were mentioning, except that you're only doing this with one mudra
Yes.
rather than experimenting with various mudras.
Okay. I've changed my posture at least once, and I had the same thing. So,
Okay,
and
tell
I
me.
had my hands like on the, I think it was turned up on my thighs, kind of like yogi, Hindu, like this. And
You mean hands up in the air like this one? Yes, that's also a posture I didn't
yeah,
mention.
not in
And the
the air. So on my thigh. So like, let's say this is my thigh, and I have my
okay,
hands like this, right?
right, okay, right. That's the easier way to do it. The question is can
Yes.
you raise the ear a couple of inches off the ground and just hold them up like this? And
Mm.
and 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 the question is, uh, where does the tension lie? Does the tension lie in the arms that are holding the hands in the air, or do the free floating hands themselves begin to have tension?
Mm.
And
I
so,
see.
with that, you can relax the hands. The whole point, always with this, no matter what mudra your hands are in, be aware of them and relax them. That in fact, the Goenka method, like the Burmese method, follows a lot of the Satipatthana Sutta as opposed to the Anapanasati Sutta. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, they most specifically the hands interesting,
Mm.
so that you become mindful of when you're grasping, reaching, touching. But in fact, mindfulness of the hands goes along with mindfulness of the eating, so that when you are eating and chewing, your hands are doing nothing. An example of that would be if you're using tools or instruments for eating, that you'll put the bowl and the tools down, put your hands in a mudra while you're now mindfully chewing the food. And
Mm.
when the food is gone, now you can mindfully move your hands again, get another spoonful, put it in, put your hands back down, and now chew that bite. That's a way of being very mindful of eating, but you're also being mindful of the hands and what they're doing also.
Mm.
All right. So there will be times in meditations when a particular part of the hand will have a particular different kind of sensation that you would normally expect it to have, like pressure and whatnot like that. Experiment with it. Play with it. That in fact you can come and put your hands, if you've got them on your knees and your thumb feels weird, you can bring it together and start playing with it. You can do
Mm.
this. Make sure that you can feel what the hands are doing. That you're not
Mm.
breaking any of Goenka's rules by doing this.
Mm.
Okay. But what
Okay.
you are doing is paying close attention to what the hands are doing right here, right now. So you're certainly
Hmm.
following Buddha's instructions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so pay close attention to the hands.
Hmm.
And do that with the intention that by the end of the course, you're going to be doing a strong determination sitting, and that you don't, in each of those strong determination sittings, you don't have to use always the same hand posture, that you can experiment with that there. But I would start the first determination sitting with whatever you would consider is your favorite hand posture.
Hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
Whatever your favorite is. All right.
Yes.
Some people like the favorite of putting the hands in the lap. Others want to enjoin the fingers and have the thumbs touch. Others want to
Hmm.
let it be more relaxed to where the thumbs are like this.
Hmm.
Others want to have the hand over the edge of the knees. There's 4 or 5 different hand postures that are quite
Yeah.
common, and you are invited to play with all of them. Make up
Yes.
some new ones. I don't
Yes.
recommend using this posture. That will draw too much attention. You want to keep your hands
Yes.
down. But other than
Mm.
that,
Okay.
allow yourself to play and experiment with your hands. Here's something: kids enjoy playing with their hands.
Hmm.
Marvelous things. We learn how to do things. We develop skills with our hands when they're kids. But somehow, because of school and whatnot, we're taken out of our body, out of our hands, and put into our brain and says, okay, now you do one, two, threes. We do learn some motor skills in the sense of learning how to write and to draw and that kind of stuff too. But we're not actually paying attention to the hands when we're writing. We're paying attention to the writing when we're writing.
Hmm.
Now we're given a chance to pay attention to the hands themselves.
Hmm.
And you're going to have a whole Goenka retreat of 10 days to play with your hands, to really get to know them
Yeah. Right.
as part of the body.
Hmm.
That in the body scanning, they don't spend too much time on the hands. I would recommend that when they're not giving actual guided meditation instructions, when you get to the hands, spend some time there
Mm.
because there are so many neurons. Did you know that there are more neurons in the hands than there are all over the body everywhere else? But the feet
Mm.
don't have a lot of skin neurons. That's why things can crawl up the leg and you don't know it. But
I
if you get
see.
something on the back of your hand, you're going to know it.
Mm. Right.
The
Okay.
hands are so good with these tiny neurons that many people learn to see with their fingers.
Mm.
I do that a lot now. For instance, when I am scratching the dog and petting the dog and rubbing the dog, I'm also doing a flea and tick inventory.
I see.
So that many
Yeah.
times I can just pick up a tick right under my fingernail.
Mm.
Okay.
Right.
So this is the way you do it. But I did that, learning to do that by working on cars when I couldn't get under the dashboard. You have to be up there working on behind the dash of a car, and you can't see anything about what you're doing. You got to feel your way through everything, and so you make sure that you know which cables are which, and you can feel the screw and which way it's going to turn, and
Mm.
get the bolt in and put it in. And we learn to see with our hands because the hands are that sophisticated. Most people
Hmm.
don't do this.
Mm.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
invite you to really get in touch with your hands, to make this actually kind of a hand retreat. And
Okay.
especially
Yeah.
pay attention to your hands in those times when you're not sitting, when you're actually
Hmm.
out walking and going to places, or when you're eating, or when you're laying in your rack, or whatever like that.
Hmm.
You've got other things to do. But when you're in the rack, the one kind of point that you have that you want to keep going is, wow, what a relief this is. I feel so good now.
Yeah. I think that's gonna come naturally. I think maybe after sitting the whole day. Uh,
Well, you'd be surprised, though, at how many people get uncomfortable during the day and then take their discomfort to the night. So when they're laying there, feeling how relieved they actually do feel, they're not thinking about how relieved and how nice it is. They're thinking about, oh, I got to get up tomorrow. Oh, another day of this. Oh, I
I
don't think
see.
I can handle it. When you have those kind of thoughts, recognize, hey, you do not have to give yourself misery right now. You can postpone
Hmm.
the misery until after the retreat.
Hmm. Right.
That they're making
Yes.
it hard for you intentionally for you to get over that.
Hmm.
That this is
Yes.
not an intentional torture chamber for the intention of torture. They're
Hmm.
creating a torture chamber for the intention of you getting and raising above the torture. You can get over
Hmm.
it. You can get above it.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been getting the whole year a lot of all kinds of things happening in the hands, but just this couple of weeks have been yeah, the thumb thing, I guess, has been the most predominant thing, so that's why I decided to ask. Um, but yeah, uh, also just a curiosity. What can you talk about nimittas and how they manifest themselves, how do they appear, how to identify one? Um,
Okay. I will go for nematons this way. The Buddha never talked about nematons.
mm,
Nimittas were done for a different kind of meditation, intentionally so. An example of that is the Kasina meditation, perhaps one that we can uh, easily understand by calling it a mud pie.
mm,
The monks would take mud, get it into a circle, and let it dry. And then
mm,
they would gaze, and this is not Buddhist practice, this was pre Buddhist. This is something that the
Brahman
Buddhists
stuff, I
practiced.
think, right?
And you look at the mud pie, and then you close your eyes and try to recreate it on the inside of your mind. And then you
Yes.
open the eyes again and restudy it until you can get a clear visual image of that mud pie in detail. Well, guess what?
Yep.
Over time, the mud pie is going to change. If you lay it down, ants are going to crawl on it. Something's going to happen. Maybe it gets a little bit broken, got a crack in it, whatever, like that. And so this is a dynamic nimitta based upon the real vision. In Anapanasati, first off, the Buddha never talks about, um, other than long, deep breathing and other things like that, investigating. But he doesn't talk about the nose tip. That in fact, even in the later Pali writings, it's not referred to as a nose tip. The later writings refer to a cave. Now, the
Mhm.
question is, what cave are they talking about? Because my imagination immediately of a cave, or my conception of the cave, would be the rib cage, the body, this
Mm.
cave. That's what I would see as a cave. How that cave got up the throat, into the nostrils, out of the nostrils, onto the nose tip. I don't have a
Mm.
clue. But it did take 1,000 years for that trip to be made.
Mm. I see.
We're talking about 500 AD kind of stuff now. We're talking about the Visuddhimagga with the nose tip and
Yeah.
all of that, but it's not in the original suttas. The
Hmm.
next point is that now where does this nimitta come from? The nimitta comes from, if you want to do this, is that as you're breathing out, you can feel the air and the touch of the breath and all of that on the nose. But when you finish breathing out, can you still detect that feeling, that sensation? And then when you breathe in again, the sensation changes kind of in the opposite direction, like there's a really big difference between an incoming tide and an out and an undertow out. Okay, so you
Yes.
begin to see that that's true when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. The nose tip changes, but you've got a
Mm.
whole body to play with. Why are these people intentionally focusing just on the nose tip when in fact that's not the teaching of the Buddha?
Mm.
That there is a story in the Visuddhimagga about a walled fortress that is so good that not even a cat can get into that walled fortress without going through the gate.
Mm.
That means that if you're going to have 100% excellent policing in that entire fortress area, all you have to do is put a guard at the gate.
Mm.
That's the idea of guarding the breath at the nose tip.
Mm.
It's a useful practice, but there
Yeah.
are many useful practices.
Yeah. So you're saying we
And
don't need to restrict ourselves to that.
pardon?
You're saying we don't need to restrict ourselves just to the tip of the nose.
Right. It's something that you can play with in passing, but I wouldn't spend a whole hour doing that.
I see.
But rather, that's part of the experience of the body. Can you, in fact, breathe out, feel the out breath at the nose tip, and then continue to feel that sensation while you're not breathing? And then when you take the next in breath, notice that the sensation is now changing.
Okay.
Okay. That nimitta, and that the description of it is like a tuft of cotton or the brush of a feather or something like that, but it's just merely a sensation. You can sit there right now and start breathing in and out, and actually breathing out a little bit heavy will guarantee that you can feel that sensation at the nose tip. Then after the out breath, can you still feel it? You can do that. You've got that kind of sensitivity. You know you can do that. Not a big deal. Big nimittas are not that big a deal. Until you don't understand it, and then people get confused about it, and then they get doubtful about it, and then they get jealous about it, and all this kind of other stuff, when in fact, it's not a big deal. Anybody can do it. But there's a lot of other stuff to do also.
Okay. So the idea that's like this kind of like visual light, circular bright light that appears in one's I don't know, on the back of the eyelids or something like that. It's not. That's
Okay,
not it.
all right.
Or
Let me ask you this strange kind of question. You know that many places in the United States, specifically Washington and Chicago and Detroit and New York City and all, will have great firework displays on the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. Can people that are not doing fireworks have a 4th of July celebration? Are fireworks required?
no.
Okay. Therefore, all of these lights that you've heard about may not actually be required. That's not
Yes.
necessarily a goal to reach, nor is it
Yeah.
remarkable once you have that. That, yes, in fact, if that's all it is, just neurons firing, then if you do get a light show, enjoy the light show.
Right.
But many
Yes.
people, when they have a light show, they think it's something special.
Yes.
No, it's not something special. It's just a light show. And in fact, neurons fire that way all the time, but we don't know it. You're actually just paying attention to something that's been happening all along.
Yeah.
A lot of people will have the imagination that what we're talking about with this light show is that the whole eyelids and everything lights up like the sky would in a big, expensive, spectacular 4th of July fireworks celebration. To where really what's going on is much more like shooting stars or uh, points of light, things like that that will appear in the eyes. Sometimes it'll be a streak or a shooting or something like that. But we don't generally want to pay a lot of attention to what the eyes can see when the eyes are closed. That's actually not something much of anapanasati other than just part of experiencing the body. So getting to learn to know the body is to also know that neurons fire. That's what their job is. And
I
if they
see.
don't get enough light on the inside for the rods and the cones to fire, they'll fire anyway.
Right.
And it's not a big deal. And sometimes they fire a lot, and sometimes they fire a little bit. But in any case, it is not, let us say, a tick on the to-do list of enlightenment.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not an item on the list of to do. It's just that they happen, no big deal. And if they don't happen, no big deal. And if they
Yeah.
happen and you don't notice it, no big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we've
I don't
talked
think I.
nimittas and lights and flashes and leg pain, and we've covered got any more questions?
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think I have any anything else for the moment that I can think of. Actually, I can speak a bit. Like we were talking about strong determination sitting before, and I've actually done a few of those. It's been a while since I've done any of that, but I've done a few of those for, I don't know, I guess like an hour and a half, something like that. But and a couple of interesting things have happened, uh, which was that what I've noticed was that so like the when body discomfort starts to arise and that sort of thing. Uh, this is gonna sound weird, I guess, but it's like so there was discomfort, but there was no suffering, uh, which was very interesting. Still today, I'm confused what that is, but it's
Well,
like,
Goenka was actually quite big on talking about sensations. That part of
mm,
the scanning and part of the strong determination sittings is to teach the students that what the body is doing is sensationalizing its experience by turning the
mm,
experience into it. And in fact, that's how the body talks. The body talks through sensation. That's its
mm,
language.
yes,
It's the mind that doesn't like some of those sensations that
yes,
we call
yeah, yeah,
pain.
yeah,
That
yeah,
sensation in the leg of the, for instance, ants crawling, they say in France, or the leg going to sleep, or whatever that tingling sensation, that may not be painful for some people,
yeah,
but other people it will be completely terrifying and painful.
yes, yes,
Right? Because you see, that's what we're talking about. That people begin to understand that their body is just the body, and pain is a mental concept
hmm,
based
yeah,
upon the fact that we
it's
don't like the
fabrication.
sensations in the body.
Yes, I actually listened to small talk of from Tanisaru Biko, and he about fabrication, the fabrication of pain, mental fabrication of pain, which is I guess what you were referring to. And
Hmm.
yeah, so what I've noticed is that like if there's no aversion to the pain, like no like idea of wanting it to go away or something like that, then it seems okay, it's fine.
Hmm.
Uh, that's what
In this
I'm.
case, we're calling it pain only because we're in the habit of using that word.
Yeah.
So we're talking about now the distinction between the word pain that we commonly use and the reaction of pain, which is dukkha. We don't like it.
Yes,
It's
yes,
uncomfortable. You can call something pain, but it's actually not uncomfortable. It's just a
yes,
sensation.
yes.
But we
Exactly.
call
Yeah,
it pain because we're in the habit of using the word pain. Just like I'm in the
yes,
habit of using the word suffering when I'm talking about dukkha, when I know, in fact, that that's not
yeah,
the right answer. That's not the right
yeah.
answer. It's just a
Exactly.
habit. Okay. So,
Yeah.
yes, there are some sensations that we call pain. They're not pain at all. And then there are sensations that we call pain and that really are
Hmm.
pain. And guess what? It can be the same sensation.
Hmm. Yeah. Also, another thing, like recently that I've uh, kind of figured out, I guess, is that it's actually similar to this, I guess, but I wasn't doing any strong determination sitting or anything like that. I was sitting, I was having pain in the back, and then I just went into it. Uh, I tried to pinpoint it like spatially where it was, uh,
Hmm.
and as I went to pinpoint it, I got to a point where the pain dissolves or the suffering dissolves. I don't know,
Hmm.
And then that reminded me again of that Tanisaru Biko talk about the fabrication of suffering or of pain, that's like mind created. It's the uh, like the way that I see it is that the mind is kind of like justifying it as like saying, oh, you see this body pain right here, this is why we have to suffer. And then you go into it and then you realize that it's not there, it doesn't really exist. And then once the mind realizes that, it lets go of the suffering, and then you no longer suffer due to it. um, that was been my my way of explaining it verbally.
Hmm.
uh,
Exactly.
but
That's good. There's no problem with that.
yeah.
So you But the important point is now that you're going into the retreat with the right attitude, you can handle that stuff. It's just a sensation.
Yeah.
You don't have to hate it.
Yes.
You can inspect it instead and recognize that it's just your friend. I mean, your body's just giving you messages.
Yes.
Very much pain is when the human being gets a message from the body and shoots the messenger.
Right.
Like generals do when the messenger comes to say, "Oh, your whole left side of the army is just under attack and they're about to lose," and the general gets bad, and so he doesn't like that information. He shoots the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. That we shoot the messenger, and here the messenger is the body, and we don't like it. So in fact, it's just a messenger. That's all it is. Just a message. Pay attention to the message. Read the message. It's got good value to understand how things are. But instead, we hate that message.
Mm-hmm.
We call it pain.
Yeah. Yeah. When that happened to me, when I went into it and it just dissolved, I felt like I got a huge insight out of that.
Yeah.
And then I kept doing it again and again.
Hey, I can do that. Exactly. That's the insight. Hey, that stuff just dissolves right away, and it was actually easy peasy. I can do that.
Yeah. And I've been doing it ever since, and it works every time. So that's
the right attitude to take into that retreat is, yeah, you can handle this thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that pain's just going to dissolve away. Strong determination cities, yeah, let me at it. I'll do 2 of them in a row.
Yeah. I think it's
without
actually
any stretching in between.
Yeah. What I've heard is that it's 2 hours each sit there, I think. Each strong determination sit is 2 hours. I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, I've never done a 2-hour strong determination sit. So I don't know how that's gonna be, but we'll see, I guess.
I won't go into old stories right now, but I've been there, done that. But anyway, I think that we've got kind of enough for you to get going on. The right attitude, that's the big deal.
Yes.
And so let's go ahead and finish this conversation, and I wish you the best of joy.
Yes,
the best of attitude in your retreat. When are you going to do it?
Wednesday. So
okay, today
3 more
Sunday.
days.
All right.
3 more days. And also, there's going to be a Sangha now after this, right? Or am I?
Yes, at 4:00. I hope that you can join, that we can actually continue this conversation and other things if I can see you come on the Sangha UK. All right, so let's start in about 15 minutes. Or so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we'll finish this one off, Johnny, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Then.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.